Okay, you should be ready to go.
Okay, good. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thanks all.
Huh?
So I'm trying to rally the troops to get more people involved in this.
I talked with her
Oh, you
a
did?
little earlier. Yeah,
She's not coming in?
I don't think so. No, of course.
Huh?
I told her that we were almost done, you know what I mean? We're at the tail end of it.
However, she hasn't had any of it.
I know. So,
It's not the tail end, this is just the beginning. Man, this stuff. Oh, here she comes. All right.
very good. Okay. I'm off mute. We've got hello. You won't be in the pictures. So.
She doesn't.
So
like
no
to be in
worries.
Public at all. It's a non-public, behind the scenes person.
Very good.
Yeah.
Have to get a new watch band.
You did. What about the keys for Steve? Well, we took care of one last. Might follow along. No. It's a homework, you gotta read the whole thing before.
Okay, we check the,
Which one is that? Is it the same as this?
should be, I can. Volume 3?
Volume 3.
This summary is based on 21 and 22.
Oh.
The what?
You said this summary today, you're gonna teach based on 21 and 22.
Yeah, 22 is the period.
It's yeah, 22. Okay, so can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Okay, good. Good. So let's begin. And so we're going to start discussing chapter 22, the analysis of the chariot. So this is an ultimate analysis using the chariot as an example so that we can understand what the ultimate analysis is. And then when we do that, after we gain some confidence in that, then we go on to using that analysis to analyze ourselves, right? So when I mentioned to my wife today, it's her birthday today, so we were out, you know, having a good time, eating good food and stuff like that. She said, "Well, what are you going to be teaching tonight?" And I said, "Oh, the ultimate analysis of a chariot." And she thought I was talking about a wagon. And so I hope we know what a chariot is. You know, then I said, "Oh, you know, like the Roman chariots that would race around the forum, the circus, right? The Circus Maximus, I think it was called. And also Greek chariots. And of course, the Indians had chariots as well. We could use a car, but, you know, we'll start with Chandrakirti's chariot. And one of the reasons for using the example is because if you're using this analysis on yourself, you might get intimidated. and then not understand how to apply the analysis. So we're using just this neutral object, and and it's interesting that although, like in the Lam Rim and in other Lam Rims, when they're talking about the ultimate analysis, they use a 4-point analysis, and this is a 7-point analysis. So it's a little bit more. It's but it misses the first point of the 4-point analysis, which is really crucial, and that is to identify the object that has to be negated, right? So when we're applying an ultimate analysis to the chariot, we have to think of the inherently existing chariot. And generally speaking, the way a chariot will appear to your mind, it will appear to inherently exist. But to identify that characteristic of the appearance of inherent existence is a little bit, it takes some skill. And of course, we've gone through quite a few chapters here already where we were trying to identify this inherent existence. And like last week, when we were discussing how the difference between the Svatantrika and the Prasangika, that where the Svatantrika was grasping at the inherent existence on the conventional level. And so that's where, where the basis, the basis of imputation is thought to be the actual thing itself. So, we were kind of at that level where there, we were discussing at the end, like, well, in order to designate something correctly, you have to have the right basis of designation for it. And what makes the right basis of designation? Is it some essence in the basis of designation itself, or is it just through the force of the customary use of language and thought that it becomes the right basis of designation? So when there's the idea that there might be something in the object itself, some essence within the object itself, then we're getting at the appearance of inherent existence, like that. Or this, in this text, what they talk about as the essence or intrinsic reality, or so many other synonyms for this. Okay, so that's something we have to keep in mind, that when we're, okay, that's one thing. And the second point of the 4-point analysis is to gain confidence that if it does exist, then it should be findable by means of this analysis. And if it's not findable by this analysis, then it doesn't exist, like that. And in the outline at the beginning of this chapter, the advantage that you will find the view quickly by using this example, there is a statement about the pervader and the pervaded. And if you've read the chapter, you'll know what I mean. But basically, it's saying that if something inherently exists, then it necessarily must exist in one of these 7 ways. Okay? So that is a crucial point, because if we don't find it in one of those 7 ways, then one should conclude that it doesn't exist at all. An inherently existent chariot doesn't exist at all. But at the same time, because because this is an ultimate analysis, it's not a conventional analysis. We're not, the fact that there'll be no inherently existing chariot doesn't mean that there's no chariot, like that. And the ultimate analysis is very different from the conventional analysis, because the ultimate analysis is looking for the thing within its basis of designation, right? So if you want to know where the chariot is, a conventional analysis would be look in the barn or look outside the barn, but it won't be look in the wheels, look in the axle, look in the place where the charioteer stands, etc. Look for that at that thing where the horses are hitched up to. It's not that's not a conventional analysis. That's an ultimate analysis. They're very different. Okay. So the 7 points are if the chariot exists in its own right, objectively existing with an intrinsic essence, then it's either identical with its parts or it exists separately from the parts. Those are the first two. And you'll see in the chapter, instead of using the word identical all the time, they're using one. Well, in this context, it means identical. Okay. And these two would be sufficient. In the 4-point analysis, that's sufficient. But Chandrakirti says, well, if we add these other bits to it, it becomes even more clear. And but whatever exists can be understood as being identical with something or not identical with something. Like whatever exists is either identical with this glass of water or it's not. That's a dichotomy. No matter what, like the Buddha is either identical with it or it's not. But so definitely. So when something is not identical, that's equivalent of saying it's different from. Okay. So, but what we have here is a way of analyzing that includes all possible, that includes everything. All right. So it's either identical with the parts or it's different from the parts. The third one, it possesses the parts. The fourth one is that it is that it the parts depend upon it, or it depend in the way of like yogurt in a bowl, where the yogurt in the bowl depends upon a bowl, and or the chariot depends upon the parts, like a person inside a tent, like that. So that's 5 altogether, I think. Yeah, that's 5 altogether.
4, yeah, that's 5.
Yeah, that's 5 altogether. Okay, good. Only 2 more left. And that I see your hand, Bob. I guess you're raising. Okay. So then the 6th one is that it is identical with the collection of the parts, or it is identical with the shape, a particular shape of the collection of the parts. And what shape means there is the assembly of the parts, so that it looks like a chariot and it functions like a chariot. Okay. And I remember when the Senchop Serkam Rinpoche, the one that we know before the current incarnation, he came to Nalanda Monastery, and he started to ask, he was giving us a teaching, and he started to ask us questions. And it was this last one that he was really serious about.
Yeah.
If you have the assembly of all the parts so that it looks like a chariot and it functions like a chariot, in the back of my mind, I'm thinking, if it looks like a duck and if it walks like like that, so isn't it the chariot? And we were kind of debating with him, but he was an excellent debater. So it was like, amateurs going against Mike Tyson. So, I mean, that could be he might remember that this time and start questioning us about that. So we'll have to spend some little extra time on that seventh point. Okay, so the usual way to proceed. So you start with that the chariot, is it identical with the parts of the chariot or not? And if it's, so we have to look to see if that's reasonable. And the usual reason that's put as a to refute that identity is that the parts are many, but the chariot is one. So, and if they're identical, the chariot would have to be many, just as with the same number of parts, or the parts would have to be one because the chariot is one. Well, that's a consequence. Those are consequences that prevent us from agreeing that the chariot is identical with the parts. Okay? There's some other additional reasons that we can add to that, but we'll get to those when we are finished with the chariot and are analyzing ourselves. Okay, but that's a well-known reason to at least create the doubt, if not certainty, that the chariot cannot be identical with the parts. Then the second point is being different from the parts. And although, conventionally speaking, we can talk about the chariot being different from the parts, but here we're talking about, ultimately having an intrinsic identity that distinguishes the chariot from its parts. Okay, and if this intrinsically existing chariot is different, other than its parts, then it should be able to be perceived without depending upon the parts. But in fact, that's not the case. You can't perceive a chariot without, the wheels, the where you stand, or the hitch for the horses, all of that. So it can't exist independently of its parts. Okay. Then the next one is possessing its parts. Is the chariot the possessor of the parts? And you can speak conventionally about the wheels of a chariot, and so that makes the chariot a possessor of the parts, the wheels of a chariot. So that's fine on the conventional level, but when we're looking for an inherently existing chariot, then that is something that you would be able to identify it independently of any of the parts. So that's just not possible. Furthermore, there's another way of looking at it called the agent and its object. So in this case, where agent arises, that arises with respect to some action, some verbal action, where you have like the woodcutter cuts wood. And so the action of cutting depends upon the woodcutter as the agent of the cutting, and the wood is the object that's being cut, like that. They're different. And so the possessor of the parts is the agent possessing the object, the parts. And if they're identical, then that undermines the conventional use of language that differentiates the agent from the object. Is that clear?
No.
Going back to the example of the woodcutter cutting wood.
So it seems very similar to the second point.
Yes, it is. There's no doubt. All the points are related to the first two.
Okay.
They're just different ways of looking at it to help.
Yeah, and because
clarify.
if there's something that possesses or the thing, then it seems like it would have to be separate from the parts.
Yes, that's right.
And there's, you can't have that ultimately.
Yeah, because you would have to be able to see the chariot without any of the parts appearing,
Okay.
right? So, okay. So then we go to the parts depending upon the chariot, like yogurt depending upon a bowl of yogurt. Again, if the two, in the case of the example, the yogurt and the bowl of yogurt, the two are different and you can separate them, right? So we've seen from the second point that you can't separate the chariot from its parts, and yet they're not the same thing as the parts, right? So it can't be that the parts are depending upon the chariot, because in that case, this inherently existing chariot would be able to be identified independently of the parts that are said to be dependent upon it.
Mhm.
Similarly, the chariot doesn't depend upon the parts like Devadatta inside a tent. So Devadatta inside a tent, we can distinguish between the tent and Devadatta. Devadatta can get up and leave the tent, and he's not the same thing as the tent, he's other than the tent, like that. Well, the parts in the chariot do not exist intrinsically in their own right as separate objects, and yet also not the same. Okay. Then is the chariot the collection of all the parts? And so the example of this is that if you spread out all the parts on the floor, do you perceive a chariot? No, you don't perceive the chariot. So it's not as if the chariot is the same thing, is identical to all the parts of the chariot. So then of course when we say, well, I would never say that the chariot is the parts all spread out. It's the parts all connected or assembled in such a way that it looks like a chariot and it performs the functions of a chariot. And that's what the last point, when they talk about the shape of the chariot, that's what's meant here. Although there are certain debates where you can just use the term shape. So the point here is that the assembly of all the parts is still just parts. And we've already analyzed that the parts themselves are not the chariot. And if you if somebody asks, do the parts change shape when they've assembled? Like the wheels, before they were assembled, do they change shape once they're assembled? No, they're still wheels. They're still the same shape. So then, just as the parts were not the chariot when they weren't assembled, they're not the parts even when they are. The parts are not the chariot even when they are assembled.
Can you explain how you actually meditate on this in your lockdown meditation? Are you doing it is this the kind of analysis you would be expected to be doing?
Yeah, Chuck asked, is this the analysis that you do in meditation? And it is, but you would use yourself as the object rather than yourself and the aggregates, or the body and the mind,
Right.
as the object of meditation. So, and with this example, we're just trying to get an initial grasp of how to go about applying this analysis. Yeah. Yeah, because there's it becomes more like that reasoning. You could also say that that even the assembly of the parts is not the person, because the parts are not the person, and so an assembly is of parts is an assembly of non-chariots. So the assembly of non-chariots does not make a chariot, like that.
Hmm. Well, I have a question about this. Because I was thinking about this earlier today, but I was thinking about it just taking a letter A with 3 lines. You take a letter A, because La Mazopa used this as a object to do the analysis on. So if you take an A, 3 lines, and make an A, and next to that, if you take those same 3 lines and make an N, and next to that, you take the same 3 lines and make a triangle.
Oh, I thought you were going to say H.
Okay, I'll say an H too. Okay, so you have an A, an N, a triangle, and an H. Okay, so we can, so the assembly of it in this shape of an A makes it an A, and in the shape of an N, those 3 lines are not an A. So there is something about how those 3 lines are assembled that make it possible to call it an A or an N or a triangle.
Okay, but you will agree that those are 3 lines, right?
Yes.
And there's no A, N, H, or triangle existing in any one of the 3 lines,
No.
right?
No.
Okay. So, but all you have is 3 lines.
Yeah, all you have is 3 lines.
And so you have 3 things that are empty of A, N, H, and triangle.
Right.
So it doesn't matter how you assemble them, unless there's an agreement that when they're assembled in this way, we'll call it an A. When we assemble it in that way, we'll call it an H. When we assemble it another way, we'll call it an N, and so on. And we'll also refer to it as an it rather than the 3, the plural, right? So that's just through an agreement. That's through a custom, the custom of identifying the letters of an alphabet.
Well, it's a custom, but it has to, I mean, it has to be a valid base, right? You have to have a valid cognizer and a valid base.
Right.
So
But
if it's a valid base, there's something coming from both sides, valid
But
cognizer.
what makes the three lines forming an A? What makes it an A?
The way it's assembled, the three lines are assembled.
But has nothing to do with an agreement of a convention that decides we'll
And-
call this an A.
No, it has to do with the convention as well,
Oh,
but
what do you mean as well? What do you mean as well?
I mean, it seems to me there's a valid base and a valid cognizer. Both of those have to be there. So therefore, that seems like there's something.
The
about
valid base,
base as
we're
well.
saying the valid base is created by convention.
Mm,
If it was independent of a convention, then anybody that saw those three lines assembled in a specific way would automatically see A without ever having learned English
Okay.
or its alphabet. They would see A.
Okay,
So
Right.
it's only through the force of convention. It has nothing to do with those three lines. It's only we agree that we're going to assemble, we're going to make a written language. So we're going to just choose shapes and we'll call this an A, this a B, and so on. But if it existed from the side of the object, then somebody who didn't know that convention would automatically see A there or B.
right, okay. Good, thank you.
All right.
Can I say something?
Yes.
First of all, hello there. I am Andrew, and I was up there a few days ago, and I just decided to just jump into this. So I don't know if this matters, but even if I didn't know what the letter was, I would still be seeing the same thing that someone else is seeing from a different country. True? So
With
there's a
visual
value
consciousness,
to the knowing.
with visual consciousness, you would see the shape.
Yeah,
The same shape. Yeah, and everybody that has no problem with their eyes would see the same shape.
Okay.
But knowing that there is an A there, that shape means A,
It's
doesn't
conscious
come from the side of
comprehension.
the shape.
Okay.
That's determined by a convention.
All right. So we would know the convention only through exposure to somebody else calling it that.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah. And generally it would be somebody with authority,
That's a
you
good
know,
one.
like our mother.
Yeah, right.
I'm working on those. I'm working on that.
Right.
I'm just gonna just mute myself now. Thanks.
Well, that's where I learned the alphabet. Okay, so yeah, and and once you find out what the alphabet is in a particular language, then you have to deal with that. You can't just, make up something yourself and still call it the English alphabet, right?
Mhm.
So, and the little differences that can occur, then, you'd have to explain them. Like, for instance, the Z, how it goes like this, but like Europeans
Put
will
a
put
mark,
a
yeah,
bar
yeah.
and that diagonal line like that. So what's that? So, oh, that's a European Z. It's just like a European 7, with a little bar going down it like that. They
Yeah,
put it there in order to distinguish it from a 1. But you should see the way they do ones. It's like this, because that little flag that we use for the 1, it's
Yeah.
like goes halfway down the whole thing. So just to be sure, it's different from a 7. So, like that. it becomes, you know, and otherwise it's like a Calvin and Hobbes commercial, Calvin trying to create his own thing and having be sent to the principal's office again. You know, it's a solid thing, this convention, it's serious. You can't just ignore it. Like the border between the United States and Canada. You know, the people look the same, they wear the same kind of clothes as us, they drive the same kind of cars. I don't really need a passport. Just the border is just an illusion. Yeah, forget that argument. Serious. Conventions are serious.
Yeah.
Okay, so that it makes the proper basis of designation, but that's something you learn. You learn what the basis of designation for particular terms are. Okay. So that's the example, and it's true that, you know, those last five are just different ways of looking at the first two. But Chandrakirti says, you know, it makes it more clear, the differences, what we're talking about when we add those last five on. But it's not as hard as if we have more. Like, for example, Ocean of Reasoning is a commentary by Lama Tsongkhapa on Nagarjuna's great treatise on the treatise on the Middle Way. And there's 27 chapters in that, and there's 27 things that are being analyzed, and even more different ways of analyzing even within each of the 27. So that becomes very complicated. But here we're just dealing with 7, and Chandrakirti says it makes it more clear than if there was only 2, like that. So then we take that example and we use it on ourselves. Okay. So and with ourselves, you know, the term self, it can mean the person, and it can mean just inherent existence, right? So like this, there's the self of persons, the self of phenomena. So where the self of persons is the inherent existence of the person, but in our language, we talk about doing something by myself. So there, the self means the person. Yeah, Toby.
Well, in here it says something about the self as there's the intrinsic nature of the self or the intrinsic nature of phenomena as 2 different things, I think it said that.
Yeah, so the first one, that self is the person, right? The selflessness of the person.
Okay, so then the phenomena, I mean, what
It's
about your
everything
thoughts
else,
and your ideas and
everything else besides the person.
just how I see
Yeah.
is phenomena, including this cup or
Yes. Also your body, also your mind, also a rabbit, everything else. And it's like that because the grasping at the inherent existence of the person is what causes us to take rebirth. If we can be free of that, then we're free of rebirth. Okay, uncontrolled rebirth through the force of karma and afflictions. And it's also an object that is always with us. So you can analyze it, you know, anytime. Whereas there are some other objects, like chariots, they're not always with us, so like that. Or even if you identify the selflessness of a chariot, it may not help you at the time of death so much, you know. Even though they say that when you realize the selflessness with regard to one object, you've realized it with respect to all objects. That's said, but you still have to move to one object to another and use the same understanding of, so the person is empty of self-existence, and so is the casket over there waiting for my body. Yeah.
Yikes.
Yeah, so there's the two, but so they begin with the selflessness of person, and that's important, and that's why in some texts they talk about the what is it, the view of the transitory collection, and that's just talking about selfless, the self of person that has to be negated, and it's important. It's the most important thing to work on. But then, of course, especially for the Mahayana and the Bodhisattvas, where you're engaged in all kinds of activities in the world, generosity, for example, you have to employ your understanding of emptiness in any action that you engage in. So the agent, the object, the action itself, you have to see the selflessness of all of those. So, so both we need to work on, but fundamentally we work on the person. So that's the main one that one meditates on. And one uses the same kind of analysis that we learned with the chariot. So with regard to the person, they talk about the person and the aggregates. So the aggregates are, like form, our body, and then the mental factor of feeling, which is experiencing objects as either pleasurable, painful, or in a neutral way. Discernment, which identifies the different objects, can discern the difference between one color and another, or discerns differences by means of knowing the terms for those objects, like that. Then the other is compositional factors, or it's sometimes called intention, which is of the remaining mental factors, intention is the most important one. But that third, or what is it? 1, 2, 3, that fourth aggregate, it includes all the mental factors. And then consciousness, which refers to the 6 primary consciousnesses, like visual consciousness, auditory consciousness, olfactory consciousness, gustatory consciousness, tactile consciousness, and mental consciousness, like that. And if one wants, one can just talk about the mind-body complex as the aggregates. Okay, so the Prasangika school will say that the person is merely designated on the basis of the aggregates, just like the letter A is merely designated on the 3 lines in a certain shape, in a certain configuration. But the letter A is not those 3 lines. It's designated by depending upon, because the letter A is an oral sound. So there's, they can differentiate things like that. Or if we go back to our early days learning mathematics in grade school, and our teacher is teaching us the different numbers, and then she says, oh, and of course, she might draw a 2 on the blackboard and say, do you think this is a 2? And we all say, yes, it's a 2. And she says, no, it's not a 2. It's only a symbol of 2. Remember that? Man, that drove me crazy. Because a 2 is not a line, a configured line on a blackboard. It's something else. It's It's like mystical. And that was the downfall of my mathematics career. So like that, so the person is merely designated. But if the person exists in its own right, objectively, from its own side, then it would have to be either identical with the aggregates or not. Okay, and if it's not identical, it's different. Okay, so it's either identical or it's different from the aggregates. So Buddha Palita, in his commentary to Nagarjuna's text called Buddha Palita, a lot of self-confidence there, right? So he mentioned there are 3 problems with that. One of which we covered when we did the example. But the first one, he said that if they're the same, then person is just a synonym of aggregates. And there's nothing separate to identify person as being something different from the aggregates. True, isn't it?
Yes.
Like that. So that was the first point. But they are different, right? We think of them, like my body. So I'm different from the body. My mind, I'm different from the mind.
Yeah.
It's like that. So,
It's
and yet,
more like we possess them, those, yeah.
true, but when we look at language, there's all kinds of funny things about it. Like if you get a sliver in your thumb, you say, "Oh, I got a sliver."
Mm.
No, only your thumb has it. But this is where the use of language is, as Chandrakirti and the great Madhyamika say, we should never lose the common use of language through our analysis.
Mm.
So that was the first point Buddha Palita mentioned. The second point was that, as the aggregates are many, then the person has to be many, or as the person is one, the aggregates have to be one. And so that's not the case.
Mm.
And then the third is if the person is the same as the aggregates, then the person has to be characterized by arising, abiding, and disintegration, because that's what happens with the aggregates. Okay, so it's produced, it abides, and then it's destroyed. It goes out of existence. And there are problems with that if the person inherently exists. One of the problems with that is with the Samkhya school of thought. So if the Prasangika, so if you're Samkhya and you're trying to apply this ultimate analysis, you would have trouble with that, because the person is, they regard the person as permanent, unchanging. And that provides stability and commonality from moment to moment and life to life, because it's an unchanging entity. So, but if it's identical with the body-mind complex, then it has to be changing all the time, like that. But even from the point of view of a Buddhist, if it inherently exists and it goes out of existence, like each moment it goes out of existence, then you have a problem with karma, because the person who engages in an action in one moment then ceases to exist at the end of that moment. So then the action that person created is lost, and that violates one of the 4 general principles of karma, that no action is ever lost. Another principle that it violates is that any experience that you have is said to be the result of action done in the past. But as the actor, is that you are not that actor who created that thing. That one completely has gone out of existence. Then you would have to be experiencing the results that somebody else created. And we're told that one of the general principles of karma is that you can't experience a result that you did not create the cause for. And another point that that Buddha Palita raises is that if they are the same, then the Buddha's when he talked about his former lifetimes, he would be deceiving us because he couldn't have existed in a former lifetime because then he only exists now in this moment, and then that moment ceases and he's gone like that. So when he says, so in such and such a lifetime, my name was such and such, I was the son of so and so, I engaged in these kinds of activities, then all of that would be deceptive because being identical with the aggregates, for example, the body is finished, completely finished. There's no continuum of it after death, as a body anyway, right? So those were some points that Buddha Palita raised.
But there is a continuum.
But a self-existent phenomena, there's no continuum of inherently existing things. They exist in their own right, from their own side, and different from anything else. So a continuum is made up of moments, right?
Right.
And each moment is like the cause of the next, right? But a self-existent thing exists without causes.
Mm-hmm.
So the continuum.
But it is unique,
What is unique?
the continuum. Each person's continuum is unique.
True. Because of cause and effect, right?
Mm. Yeah, I mean, it doesn't mix together there's no mixing together. Each one is unique and its own
Right.
lineage in effect, in a sense.
I'm not the continuum of my mind is not the continuum of my parents' mind.
And plus the continuum is then using this body. The continuum is possessing this body.
Possessing this body, it's
It's
moments of this body are labeled as a continuum of this body, right?
Mm.
So when the Buddha is talking about my former lifetime, he's using the generality I on the basis of a continuum.
Right.
Like that. It's not that he's the same, it's not the same person as the one in the past. It's a little bit higher level, a generality of person on the basis of a continuum of persons. Well, you can't say it's the same, right?
Well, it's
The
changing.
Bodhisattva and the Buddha that the
Mhm.
Bodhisattva becomes is not one and the same thing. There has to be a difference.
Right.
Bodhisattva wouldn't have to keep working. They're already a Buddha.
You
But
know,
there
it's
is-
not an inherent thing. The
It's
stream
not
of
inherent, for
consciousness
sure.
is not an inherent thing for
Yeah, but if it
sure.
was inherent, then the Bodhisattva couldn't become a Buddha at all. And we'd have to question, how did you become a Bodhisattva?
Right. Yeah. But there is part then of our mind that goes on and well, the material part doesn't go on, but there is part that is permanently existing then. Can we say that?
No,
Like space is permanent?
Yeah, but the
emptiness
space is
is
not a
permanent?
product. Our mind is a product, right?
I see. Hmm.
Whatever's a product is impermanent. It arises by depending upon causes.
Oh, because
And,
it's
and the
changing.
effect,
Yeah,
the effect comes
yeah.
into existence, the cause has ceased, right? And that's
Yeah.
what that effect will have to go out of existence as well because its cause ceased.
Mhm.
So it's impermanent. But
It's
the-
impermanent, but it goes on forever.
that's true. But then that's just a question of deciding how you want to use the term permanent.
Right.
It's true. You could use it that way, or in the context of Buddhist philosophy in English, there might be an agreement that okay, we'll use permanent with respect to non-products, and we'll use eternal with respect to like the mind that will go on forever.
Uh-huh.
And then we'll
Eternal.
accept that and we'll use that. But
Right.
that's it's just a question of having a common agreement on the use of language.
Right. Okay. Hmm.
Okay. And so, like then similarly being separate from the aggregates, then it's the same idea that you can't perceive yourself without perceiving your body or mind, right? So it can't exist separately.
Well, something exists separately from your body in the bardo.
Uh, you mean
And
the Bardo Bean's body?
it's not
Oh yeah, they have a body. It's a mental body.
a mental body.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, in some texts it says the body looks like a 6-year-old of what you're going to be born into.
But it's not material then.
So
It's not
you have a
material.
body when you dream. Your dream body is not material either, but you
Uh-huh.
have a dream body.
Not really.
Not really. Do you dream?
Yeah.
What do you dream of? Give me an example of something you dream of.
Wow. I can
Make sure it's,
flying.
Do you dream of mountains?
Yeah.
Those mountains are not material in your dream
Right. Right.
like that.
Mental body. Okay. All right.
Like that.
Sort of all right.
Well, I mean, this is a meditation that we're supposed to, we can't succeed if we only do it one time.
Right.
We have to keep doing this over and over again
Right.
until it becomes so clear
Right.
and then we combine it with single point of concentration, that
Mm.
our understanding can become, a direct perception.
Mm.
And then we reach the path of seeing.
Mm. Right.
So then being a possessor of our body and mind, we speak of it, right?
Mm-hmm.
My body, my mind,
Right.
talk about that. That's common language.
Mm.
And yet the inherently existing person would have to be findable independently of the body and mind. And that's not the case. Whenever we think of ourselves, we're always thinking of it with respect to the body or the mind.
Mm-hmm.
And then the person is ourselves is not a base upon which the body mind depends, because that base would also have to be identified as existing in its own ways separately from the body and mind. Just like a bowl exists separately from the yogurt that's in it. And then ourselves is not something that exists inside the aggregates in the body mind, like Devadatta inside a tent. So it's, you know, you use your understanding of human anatomy and you go through from top to bottom and you do not find any part of our body that's the person. And that's one problem that the like non-Buddhist schools in India believe that there's something there that like within the brain or something that is distinct, it is only the person. But that's not findable. So that's just clinging to some tenant and not following what you can actually perceive.
So something like a soul, the soul that Christians speak of would be like that, I guess.
That's right. That would be like that. You know, and the soul in Christianity is often identified with the witness, that which is witnessing experience. So in Buddhism, we would say, well, that's the mind, and you have different levels of mind that can, you know, there is one level of mind that is aware of other activities that it's doing, right? Being aware of the fact that I'm thinking, being aware that I'm speaking, being aware that I'm sitting here. And that's just awareness, which is mind. So then the person is not just the collection of the aggregates, this body-mind continuum. If you separate them out and spread them out on a table in pieces, there's not a person there. Yeah. One time when I was working as an auditor for the University of California, I had to examine human remains in the in what was it? Some anatomy class like that. Just I had to make sure that we had everything that we were supposed to have, we still had. Because some guy in UCLA was selling parts, to companies that were needing to buy human parts. Companies that make like army boots, they would test with actual human feet to see if they would blow up if a grenade went off like that. So they pay for that. And this person was stealing them from the university, which promised people that their dear ones' remains would be used for science, things like that. So I'd be looking at body parts and I would not see a person there. I made a special effort to not see a person. But I mean, if you've ever done any kind of anatomy, then you know what I mean. And then even if you assemble all the parts and have, the person, like example, what's appearing on your screen right now when you're looking at me, then that's, first of all, it looks like there's just one person there, right? Doesn't it? It's just one thing. But it's not one thing, is it? There's so many things there. There's a forehead, there's hair, there's eyebrows, there's a nose, there's a mouth, there's a neck, there's skin, there's ears, there's a shirt, shoulders, giving shape to the shirt. All that, there's so many things happening there. And yet, when it first appears, it appears like one thing. So that assembly is only the person because we designate person by depending upon that assembly of human parts, body and mind. And when we see the body of the person, that doesn't include the mind of the person, does it? Because we can't see the mind. And yet here we are seeing a person. You have to ask yourself, well, do you see the person? Yes. Oh, does the person have a mind? Yes. Oh, you don't see it, do you? No. Then how do you see the person? You're only seeing the body of the person. Yeah, but I'm seeing the person. It's common. All right. We're not going to change common use of language, but it just means that the person doesn't exist inherently in this assembly of parts that functions as a person. And we have run out of time.
But Pende, your assembly of parts and my assembly of parts, they're the same parts.
No, they're not.
They're different.
Yes, they are.
They're the same, no, I mean, the same meaning I have a nose and an eyebrows.
But they're not the same parts.
They're not, I mean, they're in a designation of different kinds of parts. They're the same kinds of parts.
Kinds of parts. Right. So, a kind of something is a generality.
So why can I distinguish you differently from me when I look?
Because the generality is not what you're seeing. Generality is created by thought. And what you're seeing is specific parts existing in a specific place, in a specific time, with a specific substance. And yours is in a different place than mine, and is a different substance than mine.
Even if I was sitting right next to you there.
It would be still in a different place. We can't occupy the same space.
No, we can't.
Yes.
Okay.
I have a question.
Yeah.
In the book I'm reading, which is it's Chandrakirti, the 7-point analysis, he talks about, and I just want you to kind of translate the first point being the essential of realizing that the phenomena imputed is not the same as its bases of imputation.
Right.
Is the phenomena being imputed like the chariot, and the basis of the imputation would be the parts of the chariot?
Yes.
Okay, then the second point of that is, well, okay, I think that explains it. Okay.
All right. So I hope it wasn't too confusing, Andrew.
Oh, this is good. It's all totally clear.
I understand all. So, I'm actually, as someone who's not been around a lot of Buddhist thoughts in person with people that think about it, I'm fascinated by the way that there's real dialogue and question asking, and it's unusually intellectually stimulating, yet I jumped in late, so I'm just trying to swim.
Sure.
Yeah.
I understand.
Pleasurable.
All right. So see you all next week.
What do you want us to read?
Huh?
What do you want us to read?
Oh,
Give him a home.
so
Bob likes homework.
I need you to read the
Chapter 23.
chapter 23, chapter 24, And chapter 25.
Easy, easy peasy.
Will do.
Yikes.
Is that all?
That's all.
You know,
We'll see how far we get.
All right, good night, Pende.
Good night.
Thank you.
Thank you, Pende. Thank you
All
very
right.
much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
More fun than watching.
Dedicate merit. Toby is the Vlad this week.
That's the whole word.
I deliberately refrain from asking questions.
Well, Toby was doing a good job.
Yeah. And I wonder, I think other people have to ask questions. I'm gonna be the only one to ask questions.